Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. It is Monday and it is your lunch break. My name is Ivana, and today I am joined by our one and only Carol Robinson. Carol kind of had a late night here, so we appreciate you getting on and joining us today. But there was an incident last night in Central Alabama where there were suspects who fired at police officers, led lawmen and lawwomen, we should say, on a multi-county chase through Central Alabama. Now, I know we had a lot of people who were kind of waking up to this news, a lot of us get in bed, I think, a little bit earlier on Sunday nights. So I thought it would be a good idea for you to jump on here, explain to us a little bit about what happened, and I think you might have some new information to share on that as well. So let's start out first. How did all of this unfold last night?
Sure. So it all began a little before 9 p.m. Sunday at the Birmingham Auto Auction in Hueytown, which is off Allison Bonnet Memorial Drive. Hueytown officers responded to a burglary alarm at the business. And when Hueytown officers arrived, they spotted a silver Cadillac SUV. Looked like they were obviously breaking into the building. The officers tried to block in the suspects, and at that point, the suspects opened fire on the Hueytown police. And a chase, they sped off, and a chase ensued. Hueytown did not return fire. They got onto Interstate 5920 eastbound, and speeds were going over 115 miles per hour. Hueytown police, then Birmingham police joined in once it got into, the western area of Birmingham. Jefferson County Sheriff's Office joined in. More shots were fired and at Birmingham police. And at that point, they issued what we call a double aught, which means officer in trouble, all help needed, and the chase was on.
You said first this started off of Allison Bonnet and in Hueytown with a call of a burglary. So, number one, how did that call come about? And what do we think was happening when officers got there? Were these suspects actually breaking in? Were they still in the parking lot?
They were trying to break in. They did not, we don't think, make entry. So, the alarm went off pretty quick, and police were quick to get to the scene. So, the chase went on for 75 miles. It ended basically in Oxford, which is 75 miles away. A lot of shots fired right about the 138-mile marker in Leeds. A Birmingham officer lost control. That was a West Precinct officer, lost control, wrecked out. That officer has not been identified, but we know that he or she was transported to the hospital, checked out, treated, and released with no major injuries.
So we had several shots fired from these suspects from starting in Hueytown all the way through Leeds. So we know that there was at least one officer who got in a car wreck and was transported. What about anybody that was either hit in the gunfire or was injured in the gunfire? Was there anybody?
No, it's amazing that with all the shots fired, no police officers were hit, no innocent motorists were hit. Deputies put out spike strips, on the interstate around the 178, somewhere around their mile marker. The suspects ended up stopping at the 182-mile marker. One was taken into custody and one fled on foot. What we know about the one in custody, he's right now in the Hueytown City Jail. They plan to charge him with attempted murder and multiple other crimes, I'm told. He is in his mid-40s, and he is a black male from Georgia. The second suspect is also believed to be from Georgia. They are still trying to confirm his identity. Initially, it was said that he was a white male wearing a red pullover. They now say they believe he is a black male that is wanted out of Georgia and may have, they may have caught a ride all the way back to Georgia at this point. They set up all night long, had a large perimeter. He had fled into the woods. They brought out tracking dogs. They brought out the SWAT team. But at this point, I'd say pre-dawn, they broke it down, believing that he had possibly left the area.
Now, I've got a quick question from Sharon, and she is asking about that suspect that is in custody, asking if he gave up and how that worked. So I know that those spike strips you said were put out about 178, I believe you said. The now just a couple miles later, we know that car stopped. Now, did the suspect, was this a result of those spike strips, or did he just give up?
Their tires were flattened by the spikes, and eventually they just kind of tried to abandon the vehicle. And at that point, one was quickly taken into custody. No injuries, and throughout the 75-mile chase, no law enforcement officer that I've been told has returned fire, which is also amazing. So
Did that suspect that is in custody, do we know if that was the driver of this vehicle or was that the passenger of this vehicle?
he was believed to be the driver, and it was the passenger that was shooting throughout the entire chase, is what we were told last night. And I haven't heard anything saying that that has changed.
You know, Carol, something I think that a lot of people wonder is this started off as a burglary in progress. This was an alarm at this business over off of Allison Bonnet that went off, and that is why the police officer showed up in the first place.
Right.
So people always want to know, why do things like a burglary in progress spiral into a 70-plus-mile chase through multiple counties down the interstate? Do we have any intel on why that happened?
It spiraled the minute they started shooting at police. That escalates. That takes it to a whole new level. Very likely they may have chased, but I mean, very likely it would have been called off at some point because the conditions were so poor. It was pouring down rain, the roads were wet, and often they'll call off a chase in those situations. But when you've got a running gun battle basically on the interstate with somebody still firing shots, they're not going to let him go.
Now, we do have some questions about, why do police believe that that suspect is no longer in the area, the one that escaped?
Right. I think they set up a pretty tight perimeter. They had it flooded with law enforcement officers, with the tracking dogs. And overnight's a long time in this weather, these conditions, to sit out in the woods, and they're thinking he may have gotten a ride just because there's been no sign of him, in 12 hours, over 12 hours.
We have a question for Debbie about the suspect description changing. Do we know, did that suspect description change after the driver was arrested, or how did the descriptions come about?
It's sort of gone back and forth, because initially, when I was listening to the police radio traffic last night, they had said it was two black males, 2 to 3 black males. Then at some point, early morning, it changed, and then it changed back. And I have no clue if the suspect in custody is talking or cooperating. So that may play a role in it. At this point, we just don't know.
We've got a comment from Adam about the perimeter. Now, it's a good question. He talked about extending that perimeter. Carol, do you know how big that perimeter was? I believe you said that was in Oxford, where the spike strips got that car to stop, and that one suspect was arrested. So,
Right.
how big was that perimeter when they were looking for the second suspect?
I don't have, the dimensions. Sometimes we do. I just know that they had stopped traffic on the interstate, because I had reports from people who had been stuck there for hours, like we had back where the wreck was. But we don't know the size of it. But it was a sizable perimeter with a very, very large law enforcement presence.
We've got a question from Bradford. I think maybe Bradford just joined, asking the locations of this incident. Carol, can you give a quick location breakdown in the multiple counties that this chase went through?
Yes, I mean, it was all interstate. It started at Allison Bonnet. They hopped on 5920 eastbound. The chase went all the way right past 459, where the Birmingham police officer wrecked. So at that point, traffic there was stopped. They blocked everything off. Traffic was actually backed up all the way to Grants Mill for at least 2 hours. Then farther east, we got to the 182-mile marker, and that's where the new perimeter was set up. And let me check. I believe that road was, let me look. Tate Craft Road was where the main area was off the interstate.
Tate Craft Road. Now, we have a comment from Angela, and I think this is, this is important to mention. And she says, this is how innocent people get killed in crossfire. Carol, in your years of experience covering these types of events and other crime across Alabama, the shooting down the interstate does seem like a situation where plenty of people could have gotten hurt, and many of them not even law enforcement, but just innocent bystanders. How incredible is it that nobody, or at least no reported injuries, have been reported?
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal, especially in this incident, because the weather and the road conditions were horrible. I'm out there, so I know. But when anybody's shooting, and often when this happens, it is innocent people that get hurt. Important to say that there were no reports of law enforcement returning fire, which obviously would have escalated the situation. So just at this point, the bad guys shooting at police. When a chase like this happens, and last night when they put out the double aught, which again is all help needed, officer in trouble, traffic tends to get out of the way and move out of the way. So at that point, you pretty much just had police in pursuit of the suspects, which did help with no innocent people getting hurt because they were out of the way. They stopped, they pulled over. Nobody's in that situation, trying to keep up with the police during the chase.
Right, and we would hope they wouldn't. Now, I know you mentioned a few minutes ago that these suspects are believed to be from Georgia. At least one of them might be wanted out of Georgia. Now, can you tell us what you know about that? And also, I know that we might have a little bit of an audio clip here going on, but y'all have to bear with us. This is 2020 working from home. We're all doing it. So, Carol, tell us why we think these suspects are from Georgia and what they might be wanted for there.
Yeah, I have no idea what they may be wanted for in Georgia, but we do know that often prompts suspects to flee. If they know they have a warrant, I mean, first of all, they're going to flee because they don't want to get caught. It also heightens it when they may have outstanding warrants because they don't want to go to jail or go back to jail. Oftentimes, when we see anybody fire at police, we later find out they were wanted on another crime.
It's very true. We're getting a lot of people saying, thank you, Carol, for being on top of everything. And I know that I echo that. And Carol, we know we can always count on you. So everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. I will leave the link to Carol's story in these comments so you can make sure that you get the latest information on this chase and on this incident. But Carol, again, thank you so much for coming out here and letting us know what you know about the situation. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. And Carol, thanks again. We will see you all tomorrow.